Hey folks, Matt Sharp here with another Pacific Angler Friday Fishing Report. We are filming for October 7th, so if it's nowhere near October 7th, click up here. This is a link to all the Friday Fishing Reports. We do it most weeks, so I should have something more up to date for you. Well, it certainly doesn't feel like October 7th, and we have problems on the horizon. We desperately need water. It is something that I keep refreshing the 14-day trend, hoping to see a mild storm in the future, because we don't want what we had last year with a crazy storm in the late season. But we do need to get some water into our rivers, both for us catching fish as well as for conservation issues. We're going to look at all the major systems, see where they're standing on the water levels, talk about some tactics for low water, as well as some things that we can do to make sure that we're conserving the resource in this time and make sure that the Department of Fisheries doesn't have an excuse to close down rivers when things are low. We're also going to talk about lake fishing, another great fishery this time of year, and because of the warmth, things maybe aren't as good as they could be, but they are good and they are worth going on, and it might mean we have a very extended late lake season. Jay's been out, we've got some cool reports, got some bugs to show you all that he's seeing, and it's kind of funny. He says it's kind of like late August, early September fishing instead of early October fishing. We're also going to talk about saltwater fishing. Saltwater fishing is slowing down in the general areas that we like to focus. Now, we were blessed this year with an amazing saltwater season, at least an amazing late saltwater season after they opened us, but we are seeing things slow down considerably. But there are some caveats there. There's some ways you can keep getting out there and fishing. We're going to talk about how to do it if you're doing the local areas, meaning the Catmouth or the Fraser still, because there's still opportunities there. And then we're going to talk about other options if you want to just continue fishing throughout the winter. Last but not least, the PFA auction is still open. You've still got time to get in on some amazing auction items. There's some really cool trips, some really cool fishing gear, and it goes to a great cause. The Public Fisheries Alliance making sure that the science goes to the decision makers and we keep fisheries open when the science tells us to keep them open. All right, as always, you want to see more reports like this, consider hitting the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's get into it. All right, everyone, thanks for tuning in with me this week. Sorry I missed you last week. I was sick, but we're back at it, and it's interesting. Not a lot has changed, and that is concerning. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is kind of going to be a doom and gloom report, but there are glimmers of hope when it comes to getting out fishing, and I'm going to try to point out some of those that you definitely want to take advantage of, but also some conservation issues that I want you guys to take note of. So first off, water levels. Look, we got to look at the weather. And it is shocking. Every time I hit refresh, I just sort of keep pounding it, hoping to see a mild storm. Well, that's Albion numbers. Here we go. So yeah, it's like 26 degrees tomorrow. Just full disclosure, filming Wednesday night. So there's some really warm weather that we're going to be seeing both up Chilliwack as well as Squamish. Squamish, I even saw 30s. Yeah, like 29 degrees for Thursday, 29, 30 on Saturday, which is crazy for this time of year. And no rain in sight. We might get some drizzles on Monday. I'd like to see more, but I don't think it's going to be enough, and we need more now. That pushes all the way out to the 19th, at least in the long-term forecast, and that's right across the board, Vancouver, Chilliwack, and Squamish. So what is this going to mean? Well, the first thing is that water's going to get really low. Fish are going to move very slowly, get stale and spooky very easily. You're going to need to get stealthy. You're going to need to do lighter leaders. You're going to need to do smaller presentations, whether you're a fly angler, a float fisherman, or you're throwing spoons. Small and stealthy is going to be the name of the game. And then thinking about where you're fishing is probably going to be a more important skill. It's pretty funny, actually. On Instagram, Rod did a sort of a spoof. And just for those who were confused, yes, he was being sarcastic out on the river where there was no one around him. And the complaints have been heavy this year that the Vedder is extremely crowded. Why? Well, because the fish are very concentrated, or at least the obvious spots where the fish are very concentrated. And then, so this has led to a whole bunch of people in very compact areas. This is a bad strategy, both for the fish as well as you as an angler. Get away from those holes. It is not going to be effective for catching fish. It's certainly not pleasant. And learning a river and understanding the fish is important, but also learning a river and understanding the flow of the angler is very important. It's something that I think great guides spend a ton of time focused on, is getting to areas where you can find peace and quiet, and more importantly, unpressured fish. Stop just going to the bridge, walking down off the edge of the bridge and standing with 140 of your best friends pounding the same scared fish. Get out there, hike. Think about times you can get out there. Early is best in these conditions. Being early is important, and I know that's going to cause a lot of people to rush out there at dark 30. I can't sugarcoat it. I fish early when we're in conditions like this, and about 90% of the catch will happen in that first hour of light. Those are the general tips. Now, I also want to talk about the conservation side of things. Because low water pods up fish in small, deep areas with lots of anglers, fish get spooked. Fish don't bite when they're spooked. This leads to folks snagging fish. Why? Because they can't hook them normally, and so leaders just get a little bit longer, floats get a little bit deeper, spoons and flies swing a little bit deeper when things aren't being caught, and all of a sudden fish are getting snagged. Whether it's a float fishing guy, a fly guy, or a spoon guy, it doesn't matter. It's wrong. You can't do it. And it is going to cause problems for the fish, but also problems for our fisheries, because things might get closed if we continue to see crazy low water, crazy warm water, and then anglers not playing by the rules. Can't stress it enough. If you snag a fish, it does happen. Think about what you're doing. Think about moving. Think about changing your presentation. Don't just cast out there into the same spot and not expect to snag again. You have to stop it right there and make a plan to do something differently to try to get the fish to bite. And my rule is, if that has happened and I've cast repeatedly to a spot without catching fish, I move. I get out of there. Rant aside on that, respect all your fellow anglers when things do get crowded, and hopefully we'll see some water soon where we can all spread out a little easier. Let's talk about the Squamish a little bit. Water is still very murky on the main stem. Water is getting low. It's actually at historical levels right now, but it is very low. I also have one that I want people to be aware of. Because the water's at a decent level, there have been a fair amount of folks going out there. I will say that there's only about 8 inches of visibility at the best on the main stems, but where tributaries come in, there is clear water. Got some reports of rafting up in the upper river. We actually don't recommend it right now. There are some major logjam concerns on the drifts, probably courtesy of the high water events last year. And we want everyone to be very, very careful if heading up that way in that regard. There are some fish up there. It's worth a scout. It's worth a hike, but I just recommend leaving the raft at home, at least until things sort themselves out with maybe cooler temperatures where it's going to suck up some of that snow melt. All right, on to the Harrison, another low river system. We're starting to hear reports of chum show up there and the odd coho. It's worth looking at this one because it's a much broader system and it usually runs clear. And so because it's low, we can access things a little bit easier. Might be worth a scout if you want to spread out and get away from some of the more crowded spots. All right, last but not least is the sloughs. They're very, very low right now, and I don't recommend looking at them. Even if they're on your calendar last year, it was good this time of year, I am concerned that those won't be good until we see water to bring the fish up into those slough areas. And I'm also concerned about some conservation issues when it comes to very little water in a lot of the spawning habitats. Okay, let's talk about saltwater. There's still options to get out there. Because of this low water, these options have been extended much later than norm, and that's made for an awesome late season. I will say things are slowing down now. There will be some fishing off the mouth of the Fraser as coho continue to push in, as chum continue to push in. I still believe more Chinook are coming, but we have seen things taper off a little bit in the last few days. That said, a few anglers have been going out and hitting classic winter spots and doing well. It looks like winter season is starting already. And if you wanted to get out, maybe you took a run at the South Arm, maybe you took a run at the mouth of the Capilano, going into one of maybe your favorite winter spots out and away and fishing winter style angling, which is down deep glow, might be really productive right now and a good way to enjoy some of this warmer weather at the back end of the season. Just something to look at if you're having trouble catching fish at the Catmouth or at the mouth of the Fraser. Last but not least, we said I'd talk about lake fishing, and it's really interesting. It feels like early September, August lake fishing. Now that can be pretty decent. It's not hot. And we've had Jay was up, a few of the guys have up, talked to Sterling, and they're all seeing the same things. They're having good fishing, they're catching fish, but it hasn't really kicked off yet. So that's a good thing if you haven't planned a trip. I'd put one on the board. If you're enjoying salmon fishing, but maybe waiting for higher water, take a look at the 14-day trend, wait till it starts getting cool, and then maybe put a couple lake days on the board into the interior. We haven't heard of stocking reports on the local lakes yet, but that historically comes right around Thanksgiving. And oh, it happens to be Thanksgiving this weekend. Forgot to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, whatever you're celebrating. But the long story short there is you might take a peek at some of your local lakes. And how you do that, you look at the Go Fish BC, check the stocking report. If they've stocked the lake, it's go time, and well worth getting the family involved as well. It's a fun one to introduce new anglers to the sport in. All right. That's everything I've got for you. I know it was a little bit doom and gloom. I am going to tune in with you in 2 weeks. We are watching these river levels very carefully. And as always, you want to see more fishing reports like this, consider hitting the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to catch you in 2 weeks.